o'clock, we'll open up our regular session meeting. Morning. Please silence or shut off your cell phones if you would, and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everybody. Additions or deletions to the agenda, Melanie?
Yes, I have an on discussion that I've added, a Criminal Justice Commission, Lake County Community Justice Agreement, SCOA development and demand analysis discussion, and sharing these on changes that you guys might want to make.
Okay, is there any other additions or deletions at this time from the board? Okay, first item is public comment. I'm going to lead that first from myself. I want to publicly announce today that I am not going to run again for the office of commissioner. I'm very humbled and honored for all the years that I've been able to serve the people of Lake County. I have almost a year left before this term is up. It's very hard for me to not run again. I'm not of age to retire. If I'm not retiring, I will just do a different direction in life. I don't know what that direction is at this time. I've had the pleasure of representing the people of Lake County, but probably one of the biggest pleasures of all is the employees. So with that, I need to let my board know. It's a hard decision, very hard decision, but it's time. So that is where I'm at. So the board, I wanted to let you know. So, anyway, with that, any other public comment? There being none. Get my shit together here.
Sound like me.
Yeah.
The first thing that we probably should do is, because we didn't have our first meeting, is the election of chair and vice chair. We don't have any liaison stuff in front of us, but would entertain a motion for chair, vice chair.
I'll make a motion to let Brad finish out his term as chair and James as vice chair. James is fine with it. However you want to do it.
I will second that motion. Are you comfortable with that, Commissioner?
Yes. I apologize. Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. I apologize, it's gonna take 5 minutes.
Would,
Come back to session. Sorry for such an early break in the meeting here. So keep me folks, then we'll go right on down the agenda. There's no other public comment. Probably nobody wants to follow that. So at 10:10, we're just a little bit late. We have supplemental budget hearing. So Ann, would you please come up and give an overview of the budget hearing?
Yes.
After she gives an overview, well, actually, I need to open the hearing first. I'm going to open up the supplemental budget that's been advertised at 11 minutes after 10. So Ann, please give an overview.
Okay, and I will say it's been an honor to work with you. I know it has been a tough decision.
I asked you to not talk any further on that. Thank you. You are a dear friend. Thank you. And we'll visit over a drink sometime.
There you go. Okay, so.
Didn't say what kind.
As far as the supplemental budget hearing, my department, the treasury department, and the business services department has been looking at financial software to replace kind of now a very difficult to use system. So our timeline moved faster than we had anticipated. So this supplemental budget releases reserves that we had thought we would use next fiscal year for replacing our financial software. And the reason the supplemental budget hearing occurs is because we told the public we were gonna save those dollars this fiscal year.
Yeah.
Now, we aren't saving them, we are actually going to spend them. So the hearing allows for comment from the public to talk about that financial software conversion. And after public comment, we have a resolution that would incorporate those changes into our budget for expenditure. Do you want me to go through those numbers yet?
I am good with those numbers. We have an audience today. Mark wasn't here with those numbers, so I think it would be appropriate.
Okay, the reserve we set aside was 60,000. It looks like for the timeline of this conversion, it's possible that we will spend 90,000 by June 30th. Again, still within all of the quote and bid information we got from both Tyler Technologies that we're converting to and Actech, our IT providers. We may not spend 90,000, but I wanna have the budget prepared for that in case for June 30th. So the 60,000 reserve becomes released and available to spend, and then I'm also proposing that we increase our PILT revenue because we received that $30,000 class action lawsuit payment on, again, a nationwide class action suit against the federal government on the fact that they did not fully fund PILT, the payment in lieu of tax, for several years. So we did receive that money. I'm proposing 60,000 from the reserve and the 30,000 from the PILT class action lawsuit to meet the $90,000 requirement that I believe will occur by June 30th.
So, since we're gonna have to pay for some of it this year, will we have to pay less the next fiscal year then?
Exactly. Yeah, in your documents, the total project cost is 130,000. So my anticipation is 90,000 this fiscal year, it would leave 40,000 next fiscal year. But as we move through the budget process, that timeline will be more firm and I will know, more clearly what will be spent this fiscal year versus what has to be budgeted for next fiscal year.
So, compliments, to set the reserve aside as the budget committee, you as budget officer and planning, we're just going to that reserve a little bit early, so that reserve is there. And then, for the bill to come in a little bit extra at a time whenever, we've agreed to go with the software and everything, this is a good thing, so. It's not having to go to contingency or anything, we're able to cover it, what's there, so, very good. So is there any other questions of Ann from the board?
No.
Is there any public comment at this time on the supplemental budget? And I'm gonna leave it open a little while just in case somebody comes in, being this advertised, and then we'll come back to it.
Sounds good. Do you want me to talk about the other items?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where I was gonna go.
So also in your packets is kind of housekeeping step. We set the 2021 budget calendar and also need to appoint the budget officer for that whole process. Your calendar should be in your packets. I think we've already discussed the meeting dates. Once those meeting dates are kind of set, the calendar revolves around that as far as timelines for notification and manager information, things like that. So again, this budget calendar still maintains the April 27th and 29th meeting dates. Remind me, did we do a Tuesday and Thursday this year on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is
Okay,
that what
is
it
that
is? I
okay.
don't remember.
Again, we like to have that day in between. It allows us to work on minutes and budget changes.
That's a Monday, Wednesday.
Okay, it's a Monday and Wednesday, which is what we did last year. Okay. So it maintains a Monday and Wednesday. I think we were going a couple different ways on that, that's why I couldn't remember. So a few key dates to look at this calendar. One of the big meetings we have is scheduled for February 18th. I hope that all of you will be able to be at that meeting.
February.
That's where I get guidance from you as the governing board with goals and ways to build the budget when I have to balance it and things like that. So that's when you give me kind of your goals, your ideas, your thoughts as I start building it. The reason we don't invite the full budget committee and it's not notified is there's no specifics. It's just the kind of ideas and the goals for the whole process. The specific approvals come during the public budget meeting times, as noticed in the paper to everyone for public comment and all those things. So the assumptions is important to get you guys on board as consensus, to give me direction and goals, like I said, but it's not the formal approvals of those specific numbers.
It can't be.
It can be, exactly. The public process is very important, and so we maintain that transparency for the public.
So, you guys got any ideas who could be the budget officer, or is there any discussion need to be had, or is there a motion out there to appoint a budget officer?
I have
Just wondering if we know anybody that's qualified or anything.
Junior Gabriel.
We finally have good.
Oh, you lost me qualified, I'm sorry.
I got a hand over here, Melanie's
I was just kidding.
drawing. She wants
Well,
to let it up.
I think I'm gonna take that motion. I'm going to make a motion to appoint Ann Crumrine as a budget officer for 2021 budget cycle.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Ann Crumrine as the budget officer for the county. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Ann, very much.
You're welcome. One last little tidbit, we did advertise in the paper for a budget committee member. We did not receive any interest, so I ask each one of you to think of people that you'd like to see serve on that and recruit.
It'd be
So-
great to get somebody out of the Paisley area.
Do you have, are you looking for recommendations right now?
I will let you guys,
We can
Decide
recruit
that.
and ask people to
Yeah.
apply.
yeah,
So
so I think that was open
we-
for a couple weeks.
We have John Jones and we have Foster.
Yes. Craig Foster,
So,
yes.
Craig Foster, sorry.
Foster.
We say Foster, yeah.
No.
Is there do we have the requirement to kind of cover the rest of the county kind of geographically, or, because really the areas that we don't have one from is either from the north end, like the far north end, or Lakeview.
Right,
So-
so I think the idea is to have geographic representation, but
Not
we can only.
Yeah.
I mean, if people aren't interested, they're not interested, and so the idea is to have all of that representation.
So if we, it's been advertised, but if we find somebody that's willing, they can fill out the application, bring it into Ann, and we can act as a board on it.
I think in the past, when we do have an opening, it is just kind of a letter of interest, and then we have a document to look, at experience and interest and all those things, and then the decision will come through a board meeting in a future one. Really, the timeline to have that person in place, need to be by April 27th, but the earlier the better. There are some budget trainings that are occurring at the Department of Revenue throughout the state, and so between those meetings and documents I can provide, it's nice to give them that little bit of information before we start our process.
Got it. Sounds good.
So, while you're here, is there any public comment on the budget hearing that's open? At 10:21, I'm gonna close the hearing for the budget. We received absolutely no public comment, written or verbal, so would entertain a motion.
So yeah, resolution 2019-07 that releases the reserve, transfers it to general fund for expenditure, and then increases the PILT revenue and allows for those dollars to be expended between the Treasurer's Department and Business Services in capital software.
I recommend that we approve the resolution for 2019-07 as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept resolution 2019-07 in the matter of supplemental budget. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. And, we have a little bit of time before our 10:30 item, so we'll, in case public comes, our next item, let's do the Caterpillar Model 966H bucket. We had Kevin before us yesterday. James, did you wanna, I don't know if there needs to be any overview, I'm sure Mark is probably aware of what to do.
Yeah, you're good.
So unless there needs to be discussion, would entertain a motion.
Hang on, I wanna get the paper here.
I got it right here.
Oh.
You find it.
Yes, I got it here. I recommend that we approve the purchase of the Caterpillar Model 966H for a fiscal impact of $12,828.67.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the purchase of the bucket with set amount. I believe, did we need to put this under a rule, a single source?
It is a single source, correct?
So we need to mention that in the motion. I'm looking here on the front page really fast.
Isn't that Rule 9?
Rule 9.
It's rule 9.
All right, I
I'll
couldn't
amend,
find it.
I'll amend the motion for rule, under rule 9 is sole source.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion's been amended and seconded to include Rule 9. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Fifth amendment to the OHA agreement. We had Trace before us yesterday. If you'd like to take the lead on that, sure.
Absolutely.
Yes, I don't have it in front of me.
These right here.
Here it is, I found it. Go ahead, sir.
The first one, I believe, you're asking for the Fifth Amendment.
The Fifth Amendment, the first one is the fiscal impact in the biennium of $3,000, I believe,
It's a full 3,000, yeah.
15 per year, if I remember correctly.
It's regarding the SUD funding, it's additional funding and revenue coming in.
For peer counseling?
What's that?
Isn't that one for peer counseling?
Yeah, it's for peer counseling regarding SUDs and substance use disorder. Are you entertaining the motion?
Yes, so I'd entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that we approve the Fifth Amendment, the Oregon Health Authority, agreement 159-169.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the Fifth Amendment, agreement number 159-169. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Also, and these, it's not unusual to have several amendments throughout the year, so we also have a Sixth Amendment coming up. And what was the fiscal, it is a positive fiscal impact over the biennium of $2,734.98, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion that we accept the Sixth Amendment, Oregon Health Authority, number 159-169 also, for additional revenue of $2,734.98.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept fifth part of the Sixth Amendment, agreement number 159-169. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Just as clarity on that, Mark, that is for additional revenue for the 2020 to 2021 fiscal year. Previously, the actual additional income was about 5,000 in the previous year. And it's gone down a little bit, but it's still additional revenue.
Explain the
I just wanted to kind of clarify those numbers a little bit, that they're separate fiscal years.
I'm gonna jump down. Jake, I don't know if you need to get out of here, but you got 3 minutes to present on yours if you wanna come up, sir.
So before you is the 1921 grant, contract, excuse me, special report grant. I, for whatever reason, missed that email and didn't present that before the board. We've been gaining money, getting our reimbursements from that grant. We just have a formal contract in place that's signed. So it's, I don't have my paperwork before me, it's about $208,000 for the biennium. So after that, 154 roughly per fiscal year. And out of that, in the packet, it explains in the back exactly where that goes. Pays for part-time PO, pays for half a position for a PO, pays for some substance abuse services, pays for some transportation costs for our clients in drug court that go to residential treatment out of town. One thing I did note yesterday, Commissioner, is that with the new first changes, effective January 11th, we will be taking a look at, I will be taking a look at our transport officers. Historically, we used retired sheriff's deputy, retired child welfare worker. There's an added cost to that because of the first changes. So I met with my staff yesterday. We're going to be looking at who we can utilize to get the most bang for our buck for transport costs. We're lucky to use my staff because when I use my staff, it takes 2 of my staff out of county all day, and that's hard to do when we have vacations and sick and different things happening here, trying to cover things here. So we're still going to be working on that, looking at that.
I know a guy who's gonna be unemployed a year from now.
What's that?
I know a guy who's gonna be unemployed a year from now.
That's something to talk about.
I'm just kidding.
I might take you up on it. Nevertheless,
I might not take you up on it.
it covers some confirmations at our labs for block roll samples as well as urine samples. And there's some administrative costs that are recovered. So I'm just asking the board to sign that so I can get that.
I think we actually need to ratify your signature, don't we?
I didn't sign it. I was gonna go for ratification, but I thought we would, because that last signature, that was the grant. That's the budget stuff. The actual contract I haven't signed.
Perfect.
Just
So,
approve you putting your signature on it, basically.
Approve the contract and for him to, because you're good to go. So, we need that in motion because it's a contractual agreement.
I'll make a motion to accept the awarded CJC Specialty Court Grant for fiscal impact of $207,885, the biennium of 2019 through 2021.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the grant as stated and give the authority to Jake to sign for that. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You lost 15 seconds, you went over by 15 seconds. All right, we got our timed item. Silver Lake RFPD. Come on up.
Morning.
Good morning.
Well, as you know, we've, well, I guess, a couple that don't know me, I'm fire chief in Silver Lake, Keith Little. And we've been dealing with motel tax issues, as Brad knows, for several years.
For a lot of years.
For a lot of years. Our board and North Lake EMS's board has finally came to an agreement to divide the motel tax into the ASAs in which the money is generated. Therefore, money's generated in Silver Lake, Summer Lake, they're willing to give back to Silver Lake, Fire Department. And the money's generated in Christmas Valley will stay in Christmas Valley. They just agreed to that last week. They will be sending a letter to the county treasurer, stating that fact. They can have it available today. So I think.
I'll have to research this, I'm gonna take my best shot off the top of my head. I
Yes.
believe the process that we'll have to do is that's by local county ordinance. And so then we will have to, when that recommendation comes in, I believe we'll have to, have a couple hearings and then.
Correct.
Do that, so
Right.
it's not gonna happen overnight.
Right.
If I'm correct on that, I can
Yeah.
try to remember back, Keith, we've had these discussions over the years, but
Right.
I believe that's a process that will
Right.
come before.
And we're not asking to, take anything away from what Chamber of Commerce receives and stuff. We're just asking
Reallocation.
reallocation of
Correct.
what goes to each EMS district. I have 4 letters of support here from the people that pay motel tax or the transit tax in our area, one from the Cowboy Dinner Tree, Summer Lake Lodge, Harris Cabins, and Silver Lake Motel, all in support of this as well. As you know, it's getting harder and harder to fund EMS services
absolutely.
nowadays. So we've all agreed that this is the right thing.
Well, I have to commend you because I think over the years, what we've requested as a board is for you guys to go out, talk about it, and come back with a proposal to us.
Correct.
Which you've done, and whenever it makes these things much easier, whenever both EMS are in agreement, both places are in agreement to that, so.
Correct.
This should flow through, knock on wood, should flow
It
through.
should flow through.
Quite, and it's the right thing. It's the right thing.
Right, and, well, it states, you'll see in this one letter from the Cowboy Dinner Tree that, they bring in 17,000 people a year plus. And they're very strong supporters of keeping the money where it's generated.
Well, and they bring in 17,000.
17,000 people a
There's
year.
potential from car wrecks to heart attacks to whatever, because you bring people
We
in there.
get 1 or 2 calls a year up there.
Absolutely. But I get those letters to
Yes.
Melanie, she'll make sure all 3 of us get copies.
Okay.
And
I guess, president of our board asked, is there anything else that you need from either entity other than the letter that will be coming from North Lake EMS?
I don't believe so. We'll run this through our legal counsel. Ann will probably be the lead on that because she's the one that disperses the motel tax and get the right information to us, the right process that we need to.
We might have to rewrite how that's distributed.
Well, the ordinance has the distribution in the ordinance.
Correct.
Right.
Go ahead now.
So I'm thinking maybe we should just do a new ordinance and not, because that ordinance is governed in, that'll change the distribution and you guys won't be eligible for as much money. So I think maybe we should talk to the legal counsel about a new ordinance
Well,
aside from that. So we still have that one and we can build off of it.
well, that's a thought. I'm off the cuff thinking amending the ordinance we have without opening it up for everybody to come in and want to change all the other
Yeah.
structures of the dollars that's received. Because there's other entities that might want to see the motel tax distributed different. So I'm thinking more of an amendment off the top of my head, but
And that's what we would support as well. I know I'm speaking for the owner of the Dinner Tree and he would like to see his tax dollars go to EMS versus somewhere else. Like he says, he brings in 17,000 plus a year and he thinks that's where it should be, is in the EMS and versus somewhere else. That's his wish.
well, and they're the tax collector that gets.
They're the tax collector, they're the ones that writes the checks.
So yeah, I think you guys have given us the tools that we need though to
Okay.
move forward with the next step.
Yeah, and it's following the direction. You guys weren't sitting here, but I think you support that same theory is you guys bring back to us what you really would like for us to do for you.
Well, we were here when you and Jamie Roscoe brought this before us.
Correct.
Earlier last
Yes,
year.
earlier
Yeah,
last year, yeah.
And it took time with the other agency, because they already had that money in their budget. And so they asked us to wait until the first of the year when they create their new budget.
So as far as time goes and the tax goes, do we need to amend that right away so they start getting that one?
Well, it sounds like they have the date that they would like to make it happen, and it's paid quarterly,
Correct.
and so, let's
I don't
see
think
what
the
their letter
first
states.
payment doesn't come till first of April, if I remember right.
Yeah, let's see our process, if we have to have hearings, we have to run 2 hearings, so that takes almost a month.
Right.
That itself, and so, has to be advertised in the whole works. But whenever you have your formal letter into AM, you'll probably have a time frame that you'd like to see it done by, I'm assuming.
Yes, yeah, well, as soon as possible, but like I said, the formal letter will be coming directly from North Lake EMS, approving, or, basically stating what they've agreed to. Because they won't have copies of their minutes until next month, official copy. So they've instructed her to go ahead and draft.
We might be able to, Keith, we may be able to get some things in process. I think that's where you was going, Commissioner, is what can we start in process, waiting on their meeting to get that formal letter.
Okay.
We'll see what we can do there.
One other note, just a quick reminder is when you start next year's budget, remember myself, Daniel Tagg, Deputy Fire Marshal Scott Rice came, and we asked for the line item for fire suppression money to be put in the county budget for this coming year. In case we get another Watson Creek, we get another Berry Point. Just like to remind you guys to keep that in mind, because it's not a matter if, it's a matter when.
And
Do you remember what actual figures were?
I think we was gonna ask for 10,000 a year, up to build a kitty up to 30,000. And then just hold at 30, and then use as needed, to that point,
so,
And we propose a process, too, is, this money's only gonna be used to reimburse the fire districts that go out of their area. Once, mutual aid services are exhausted, and before a bill is submitted to the county, it's going to be approved at the county fire defense board. So we're not gonna allow districts just to go run willy-nilly, chasing smoke all over the country. It's to basically reimburse fire districts when they're out for extended period of time, like Berry Point, Watson Creek, those type of fires. Because it does add up. I know our district, when we use it on Watson Creek, it cost, our district several $1,000s to support our neighbors. And that's money that's generated in our fire district but not being spent in our fire district. And our board's starting to kind of pull the reins in a little bit.
so if I remember the discussion, it wasn't about wages or anything, it was about actual cost for fuel.
Correct.
and-
Correct.
They were on a
Tires.
like if they lost a pump.
Yeah.
Tires, fuel,
Even
things
rate,
like that.
Yeah.
Which, cost can add up pretty quick.
So, I don't know if it's too late. I don't know if anybody even talked Title III dollars, whenever it's on the forest, if it's not the BLM land, but the federal forest land, we have a fund that, Title III dollars, and during those events, there's some guidelines we're able to use those dollars, it's pretty strict guidelines.
Correct.
And I apologize, I didn't think of that. I know you guys were before us last time, but we need to check on that. Not to build this fund you're talking about, but if you guys are called out onto the forest side, is that reimbursable through the Title III dollars?
Correct.
And you wouldn't know about the Title III dollars, but
Well,
I
I've got a little
and
knowledge.
Daniel knows about them, and sheriff knows about them, but, we're sitting with a significant amount of Title III dollars sitting there, and I'd much rather they go out for the actual use what they're designed for. So, don't know if that fits.
Okay, but I just wanna remind you to look, keep that in mind when you start making this coming year's budget, or next fiscal year's budget.
Got it. Yeah.
You hit just as we're getting ready to go into assumptions here, and,
Yeah.
first of February.
Well, I was waiting for Ann to get done with the supplemental before I brought this up.
Okay.
But like I said, it's not a matter of effort, it's a matter of when. You got by pretty easy in 19 without any big fires, but.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate you traveling
Thank
here.
you, Keith.
We'll see you guys.
Anything you need from us, why, get it with myself or Tom Borky's the president of the board?
Briefly, I'll give you
Yes.
an update. I have started some discussions with the Forest Service about potential locations for LZs, additional LZs in the county. I want to update you, it's you and Gary, and I've talked about that before, I believe, Gary Frank.
Yes.
And so we're looking at spots throughout the Forest Service areas where there might be some potential for additional LZs in the county.
Okay.
And have not been able to start that conversation yet with the BLM, but they have spots in some of those remote areas in the county. We'd like to
Yeah,
see where this goes. So
the helicopter pilots are getting more picky
Yeah.
all the time where they land. They don't like it, sucking up a lot of dirt and sand in their motors.
got it. So anyway, that's just wanted to update you real quick with that before you take
Okay.
off. So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip home.
Will do, thanks.
Rocking on through here, Boca, CFA, this is the actual agreement for the grant, which Ree before us yesterday, and also with her, once we've had Caitlin give an update, so it's just a matter of, in my opinion, of go ahead and get this taken care of.
Do we have everything we need to make sure that that grant goes through? Melanie, did we get?
We're working on it.
Yeah, there was still something that might be missing, or,
I think we'll have it by the end of today.
okay, alright, good.
All right, so would entertain a motion.
Do we want to update Commissioner Albertson with anything?
I read it.
Okay, you did. Okay, you did, alright, good. I would entertain a motion that we accept this and get the Boca grant signed and approve it moving forward. There's not much more to say on it.
It's not.
Get the signatures taken care of so we can get this.
Did I hear a second down?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the memorandum through the Department of Justice Crime Victim and Survivor Services Division in Lake County. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, motion carries, that's ready for signature. I think those ladies have to do an awful lot of paperwork on
Yeah,
that
I think so too. Yeah.
over the years, so. Got my composure back. Did we want to go over on any liaison changes, or are you guys good? Do anybody have a burning desire to take over all of mine next 9 months, 10, 11 months?
I wouldn't mind kind of gravitating toward the fair thing, since that's what I've been working on more, so that's about the only thing of yours just yanking at me. What do you think?
I don't know if I want to take anything else on.
Well, that's
So,
Okay, so,
I might just kind of shadow you on that.
well, there's two options. I love the fairgrounds. I'm willing to step down. Just
I
for,
want you to step down.
okay, well, I appreciate that.
I just wanna, I wanna just,
I just wanted to explain, the commissioner redone with the fair board many years ago, 19 roughly, I was when I got to the railroad. But anyways, there's an actual position for a commissioner on there. And so, I'm setting that position, and I would encourage, as you guys are here over the next few years, continue, it keeps a good relationship. You hear other boards of commissioners fighting with the fair board a lot, we don't see that a lot here, but both over the commissioners and the fair board. I don't know if it's, appropriate or not. We'd have to ask legal counsel, but we just had a resignation of a fair board member at our last meeting. So there's a regular fair board member's position open. And I don't know what that would mean if the commissioner, because you're not commissioners when you're on there. You're fair board members, but it's hard to take your commissioner's hat off. I don't know if it'd be appropriate for board commissioners to appoint you as just a regular lay person there.
And
If you want the application, or if you,
I'm actually with James, I mean, I got so much stuff that I gotta really be careful.
I would
when I take on.
I was, you haven't even got to finish my presentation yet, sir.
Gosh.
I was ready, I was on the end of the high dive, I was diving off.
I would say no.
So why don't we look at, possibly, let's look at that in 6 months and maybe make that full transition. If the board is interested in that, we can change days on any time. So we're working on some MOUs and different things right now, that I'm quite entrenched in, so I'd gladly let you take on all that work, or else we can try to transition in a few months from now.
I'd good for a few months.
So our meetings are the first Tuesday of every month, and public and other people are always welcome. So when you say shadow, absolutely, come to meetings. And I've already had the discussion with the fair board that I probably would be stepping down here not too long. They don't know my announcement today, but it probably won't be a big surprise.
And I think if you have interest there, it might be prudent though to attend some more of those meetings and stuff and just.
And boy, either one of you, any kind of support, especially when you're in the legislature, Salem, support for our fairs. It's huge. It doesn't matter which commissioners liaison, we're all
Right.
just jump in there.
That we all advocated for it this last week, so.
Yeah, well, boy, fair boards, your eyes get really big when they start talking about doubling the amount of money we're gonna get. We all get excited. I hope the lobbyists and AOC can get something in the short session that it never happened in the regular session.
So, since we're there, I'll just kind of update you on that meeting, the fair meeting yesterday in Salem. We had a fair meeting with, the Oregon Fair Association. Art Knoll was his name, and they've hired a lobbyist that is gonna start lobbying on behalf of the Fair Association. AOC has come alongside them to give them any kind of support. What they're trying to do is collect all the data from the fairs, each fair, and seeing what the needs are, and bring it to legislators to try to get more money. But we needed to find out, exactly what the needs are first, so we have something to present to them. And so, more than likely, it's not gonna happen in this short session. We are gonna ask, but it's more of a long game, and so it'll be in the next legislative committee. And so, we are gonna ask for them to pay for the data analysis, which is about, they're figuring about $250,000. And then they're gonna ask for $900,000 to be split up amongst all the fairs. And so whatever we can get, that's what they're gonna ask in the short session. And then, go from there. And so I asked if we can get partners like Oregon State Extension Service because they have some skin in the game with the 4-H and that. And so maybe even have them collecting the data for us and things like that, so.
Yeah, so, we should have quite a bit of the data on I do have quite a bit of data on the attendance of the fair. And we should, at our fair, we're going through the master plan and that grant right now, is every fair, I believe almost every fair, the deferred maintenance has just went past every dollar.
Yeah, the deferred maintenance and inflation. We've lost a lot just from inflation alone, and so, and most every fair is in the same position. Union County, they've lost their carnival, and so that's something that they're trying to work on, because, the carnival draws in, and so we just need to be hitting on all cylinders, so.
So I encourage you and thank you for working on that. It's one of my passions, obviously. One thing that brings all of Lake County together is the fair. That's the one time north, south, and other part of Lake County, all the way down to New Pine Creek, we're all together.
And there's such an educational piece, with the 4-H and like one commissioner brought up, in the criminal system, virtually none of the youth that are charged with a crime are in 4-H or FFA. And it's virtually non-existent. And so, there's so many things that it provides for our community, the unity, the education of our youth, a million other things. And so, it's very important.
Are you talking like me? You ran the big boards together about 35 years ago.
Yeah.
We did, at the fair.
We saved Willie Riggs's life.
We did. We did. So, anyway, Mark, thank you, James, both of you, for working on any of that. And the strategy would be to ask now and be fully set in front of when it's a long session.
So Rocky from the EOCA, the Eastern Oregon Association of Counties, is also backing AOC and the lobbyist from the Oregon Fair Association. And so it's, we're really hitting it on all cylinders there. So hopefully we'll start seeing something happen.
So being from this, I'm going to vary a little bit and get a little bit of a liaison update. I did mention that we had a resignation. Tilly Flynn resigned from the fair board only just because she's so busy working right now and everything. So appreciation of her time on there. The other part of that liaison update is we really working as a fair board out there to pull all entities together out there. There's been boundaries over the years, whether it's roundup in the fair, it's the extension in the fair, it's the cell committee in the fair, or whatever. Public really doesn't care if it's the fair and roundup. And so we're working really hard putting MOUs together so that, and structuring those so that both ways, whichever entity is out there, has the connections and the communications that help everything flow so that it works right. So we're making a lot of progress out there. The conference for the fair board was, for fair management, I think it was last week. And one fair board member, or two fair board members, the director and a roundup association person went to that. And it was very positive. I haven't got a full update from our director yet. But for years, we've been bridging those gaps. I think we are right there at where, especially with the 100th year last year and everything, we have a lot of great support for very positive. We're all doing eventually work, so. Buried over in the liaison, but the opportunity was there. And, go ahead and mention that. So, that's just talking one liaison position. Now, which ones do you want, James?
As stated, I'm not sure I want anything
Well, before
additional,
you-
I've got quite a few.
Before you drop the bomb on us, I was gonna give you some of mine.
Well,
Is there any of my liaison, the ones that I currently own, that I'm currently liaison to, that you guys are interested in working more with or anything, or?
You know, for me, I've always said that liaison is the place for the department that they sort of start, that we're all equal.
Right, absolutely.
And so I'm comfortable with your liaison, something on that department. I like to let you know whenever I'm gonna do that most of the time or whatever, but, or mark or whatever, but I don't have no desire to take on. And before I dropped the bomb, there was only one person in this department that knew that was going to happen other than myself. And that was
Sure.
our administrative assistant.
That
So
makes no
I kept it very quiet.
So did she.
She's a confidential employee.
Another real quick update on the cap and bill, cap and trade bill, you might have talked about it already, but, it's now LC 19, and it's pretty much the same thing, just lipstick on it. And so,
It's got a different name.
my personal opinion,
So keep that lipstick off your collar because I don't support that at all.
I do not
Maybe you're not
support
alone.
in any measure that. And I went and seen Senator Finley, first time as a senator, and went to his office. And he says the battle's gonna be real. Representative Reschke says the same thing.
Well, I think on the political side, it's a very bad thing, especially for a lot of us eastern counties, you know, where there's a lot of miles, a lot of farming, a lot of ranching and everything. Politically, it's gonna always be pushed, so they need to, the senators, representatives, really work on the amendments to protect us. Because if it does go through, it needs to go through with amendments for the protection for, but just politics.
I think honestly, rural Oregon should be exempt, in my opinion. And one of the things that I stated in that meeting that we had, I was previous to the legislative committee, but we were talking about this, and they want to basically try to address climate change. They want to address the emissions that we're dealing with in Oregon as if they are a very serious thing and we can actually make an impact. Well, we here in Lake County, LCRI, and through our cooperation and past boards, we've supported the efforts of LCRI to get Lake County to the point where we have offset our carbon emissions almost 100%. We are that far away from completely offsetting our carbon emissions, but no recognition is given to that. Now, if the state is serious about offsetting our carbon emissions for the state, they're going to have to work with rural Oregon to do that, because you can't put in a 4,000-acre solar farm in Multnomah, Clackamas, or Washington County.
But you can take all those buildings off that prime farmland and turn it back into farmland.
Right? You could. You have some of the richest farm ground in the state, and you pour concrete over the top of it.
You're exactly right, and I think I've heard this quite a bit, Commissioner, a lot of this, where they want to change some of the emissions and everything, needs to be for those areas. But one shoe doesn't fit all.
And if they wanna create incentives, that's fine, but the idea of, and I did say it in that one meeting where I threw up my hands kind of at one point because I knew I wasn't really getting anywhere. And I just said, I just don't really see how taxing the constituents in my county is going to stop icebergs from melting in the North it's not making a difference, but we have made efforts on our own initiative. Lake County, previous to long before either of us, was making efforts to address this stuff, long before cap and trade was ever even being written. We were offsetting our carbon emissions in this county with both geothermal, solar, and wind power. Where our prison and our hospital and everything else have been huge positive impacts. The backscatter side.
I have the original coasters that Jim Walls, when I was on the chamber board, and we tagged Lake County as the most renewable county in Oregon.
Right.
And you're right, so I'm going down memory lane here naturally, but
Yeah.
thanks for acknowledging that because Lake County and forest management in a lot of ways has been the leader, and with no recognition of
Very little, yeah.
and then if you get into the farming side of it, away from here, a lot of farmers have done a lot of things.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of things, and you start looking at the more conservation minded on farming as far as more efficient on watering, more efficient on so many different things, that never is considered at all, that goes on out here, so.
Well, just take the prison into account. Just between their solar plans and their geothermal, they're virtually self-sufficient on the energy side. And it's the cheapest ran prison in the state of Oregon because and greenest. If you wanna go there.
I don't say green, I say renewable.
Okay.
I probably should.
So, but anyways, we got away from the agenda.
Well, it's good liaison update, I think.
Yeah. So, we always do it the first meeting in January, throughout the year, if there's something comes up and you are on a committee or something, and it's something I'm liaison to, it would be helpful for you to be on that liaison side of it. Over the years, it's not mandatory, you have to do it in January, so it can be any month of the year.
Yeah, so anytime you wanna take 4 or 5
Jeez, you guys. I have a substantial list. I'll give you, I mean, I would love to learn more about all the different things that you guys are doing. So please, I mean, like, get updates are great for me because it helps keep my mind engaged in understanding what all you guys are working on as well. So, I mean, I'd love to learn more about all the different departments that you guys are liaison to. Wolf Committee, for example, you know, I don't sit in on those meetings. Love to hear about them sometime, you know, I mean, but.
When we get to our liaison, I'm gonna.
Good,
you'll-
awesome, so, yeah,
You'll hear some howling.
that's pretty much all I'll wait to update you guys on my liaison updates and stuff.
Let's rock it down the rest of this.
We have planning.
Let's get this first amendment to the, ODOT agreement. Melanie, this is, you went over this yesterday. Let's get it off the table, entertain a motion on that one. Unless we need some overview, board.
I'll let you guys do this one, cause I have not.
Do you wanna update, Commissioner Alderson, real briefly?
So, I've gone through the procurement process, I acquired a grant. They gave me a range of things that I could purchase that qualify for my grant. And now that I've purchased the vehicle, this just,
Oh, is this your bus that you were telling me about this morning?
nope, this morning, so I applied for a new bus yesterday. So I'll hear about that in probably 6 months. It's a competitive grant that I applied for, so we might not have the greatest need here. There might be other counties that have more need than we do. So hopefully I had some good persuasion in my grant that makes us look appealing for the help. Anyway, so this grant was from last year, that I was awarded. And this is the new blue bus that has the full wrap on it. You might be seeing going around town. And this amendment just firms up the specs, and so it's
Clears the
specific to
language.
this, it clears this language, and it's just one bus now, it's not just a range, like 12 to 14 seats. so many ADA stations,
That's the exact description of the
exact
vehicle that you
description,
already have.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, no funds have changed, the grant's still the same, but it just clears everything up.
Thank you.
With that, I'll make a motion that we accept the ODOT agreement number 32859. That needs to be amended to reflect the exact description of the new special transportation vehicle.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept amendment number 1, agreement number 32859. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We could make Ginger wait for a long time. Ginger, you're next. And we asked Greg to carry this forward. I don't know if anybody's updated Mark, but you might have an announcement you want to tell him about.
Mark, we've already kind of got that part done.
Have you?
But more
Okay.
to come. But this is what we wanted to talk about a little bit, is that correct?
Yes.
The development demand analysis?
Oh,
Okay, so,
is this my copy?
yes, it is. So Betty and I talked, with Commissioners Winter and Williams yesterday about this, along with several other things, but I will get together and I'll update you on it. But I think we wanted to talk a little bit about how, what we thought about moving forward with this report. This has been generated through the Brownsfield project, and this is a draft of the report that was commissioned by by Cardno to sort of frame what the next steps could be and what was important in Lake County for us to really start looking at to move forward with more direction with economic development. I mean, that's sort of the crux of it. And we don't have a lot of data for our county. So what we did was this consultant from Portland, Alyssa, I can't think of her last name, I'm really sorry, it doesn't probably matter that much. It's Bridge Economic Development and then Cardinal, in conjunction. And then we facilitated them coming and getting a lot of anecdotal information. And they went and interviewed lots of people in all of the sectors of economic development that you can imagine that Lake County would have. And that would be, the timber industry, education, ag and farming, industrial, all the sectors that you can imagine, small business, et cetera. So that's what this report came out with, it's generalized, it's not in a lot of detail, and it sort of gives an overview of what they heard and what they found, and the bit of statistical data that they were able to capture that made sense for us. So on page 10, the real crux of the matter is under number 5, the recommended development focus. And these are actually in kind of in the order of importance, or where you would want to maybe start first, or what it sort of builds on itself. And one of the things that they really identified was our need for the construction trades, more, that's pretty obvious. But in sort of suggesting some areas that, how we might go about doing this. That was not necessarily here in the report, but there's some ideas about that. And Betty shared one yesterday about beginning to do a mentoring program with the high school with our existing trades folks. For instance, possibly Tracy Electric, Outback Plumbing, and some of those folks, so that we've got kids and I've actually had conversations with a couple of kids in the high school that are interested in doing that sort of thing. So, and not necessarily related to this report or anything, but just in casual conversation. So we think there could be some potential there, and what would we need to do to move that forward? And probably, I mean, we all are really busy in committees and all of that jazz, but it probably deserves some conversation and some initial, making sure that we've got people that really would be interested in doing it. And then as you go forward, the other things that were important were code enforcement, broadband amenities such as retail amenities, talking about our, what is available here to purchase that is needed, professional daycare, small business development support, and then the Brownsfield project, getting things ready to accommodate some of the things that are listed before that. So I think it would really be helpful to look at the possibility of a group forming to take this forward. But I think, you folks need to kind of discuss and think how that might work. Have not taken this to the town of Lakeview yet, but definitely want to do that. I suppose we would like to do that before the draft is complete, but we're not sure that will be possible. The consultants will only be working on the project just a bit longer. But we wanted to get some input from you folks before we finalize the draft. We've got a phone conference call with them tomorrow to talk about some of the last steps in the report. But I think it might be helpful, and I don't want to see it. I always think about Brad when we do these reports instead of saying, I don't want to see this go on the shelf. And I don't want to see it go on the shelf either. But this can be a really nice document to support what we know we need in our county. And we don't often have good backup information when we go to apply for a grant, or we need to make a point at the legislature or someplace. We have this now, and that's really what this is for. I mean, it's to inform those that have resources that we might be able to benefit from. So I'm hoping it doesn't ever sit on this shelf, at least for the next couple of years. I mean, that's about as good, a length of time as something like this is good for, but it can be really helpful for the work that you all are doing legislatively. And when you're thinking about your decision making, with your day-to-day that you do, so.
Yeah, and yesterday we had quite a bit of conversation. I think I pretty much mentioned almost everything I needed
Right,
yesterday.
you had some really good points.
But, that is a tool for many different, whatever we're doing, that is a tool that they can check the box on the grant, and use them as a tool. Your grants you go up the scale whenever you're mentioned, or this is mentioned as a problem within your county, or it's a good thing within your county, and it's mentioned in there or whatever. So, I thank you for that. Whenever there's money put into these things, they need to be used.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of
Exactly.
that, Ginger, I raised my hand, it's so easy to forget about it.
Right,
We,
it is.
especially boards of commissioners, the first time I heard this, it sort of bothered me, but it's real, we're generalists. So this
Right,
15
no.
minutes, we're working on landfill, the next 15 minutes,
No,
we're having somebody come out on nuisance complaints,
Right,
so on. So we have a tendency, we need the economic development person or the other people to jab us and say, we have this tool,
right.
please use it.
Well, and that's what we really want to do with the whole brownfields project. It's not just about, assisting building owners and property owners in, looking at their infrastructure and or their ground to see what is maybe preventing them from moving forward and any environmental issues, but it's been really heartening to know that we're getting other products out of that whole project that can help us move forward with economic development in general and community development stuff, so this
I
is
got
helpful.
get on my bandwagon again. I struggled just from experience. The word economic development, it's more community development or something in that nature. Because most people associate economic development with the number of jobs that have been created.
Right,
And the work on these things that happen today may not come to fruition for
That's
5 or
right.
10 years. And so those tools and those things, and as I learned over the years and changed my thoughts on economic development to
right,
some of the work done today, that person may not even be there whenever that comes back as a very,
Absolutely.
very huge impact on the way
Yeah.
we attract things to our communities. So I've learned with years of experience, economic development isn't just what jobs were created. It's what the things in place so that those were attractive for people to come here and create jobs. So
right.
anyways, I'm sorry to get on my
Yeah,
bandwagon.
no,
but it's-
and I think I said this yesterday too, that I don't really see this 3-year project with, this EPA Brownfields project as being over in 3 years. I think it's a stepping stone. They'll stay with us, they'll stick with us as long, and there will be other grants that we can go after that we would not even be eligible for, they wouldn't even look at us if we hadn't started this first step. And so I see this as a several-year process, you know, and, I just hope that we can, you know, things like this can encourage you all to continue to support that, continuing, you know, saying, yes, we wanna do another grant, yes, we wanna move forward and do more after the 3 years. So I think this is gonna be helpful, and it doesn't have a huge number of bells and whistles, it's very readable. That's, I think, another important part of it. We do have the 257-page development, what were we calling it? The development, anyway, it's actually about blighted properties that landed on us on Friday that I'll get you up to speed on, that I think is really gonna be an excellent tool for us.
Absolutely.
I don't even think we know what I'll be able to use that for. Even, you know, the printed copy of it will be helpful, but the electronic copy where you can just click in and go places, it's gonna be amazing for planning, for you guys, for everybody, so. Anyway, so I'm hoping that this goes someplace else and, you know, that you guys have an opportunity to think about it, and we'll get the final draft to you when it's done. And if you've got comments once you get through it, let me know.
I do, and then I just want you to remind me about the blighted
Okay, so,
properties. I mean, not right now. but
okay, yeah.
When we meet, because I wanna ask you a few questions on that.
Oh yeah, we'll do that. It'll be one of our big things to talk about.
That bus
So that's it.
Melanie was talking about, we threw you under it on the blighted properties yesterday when you were here.
Since I wanna hook it in with the nuisance stuff,
It's totally that, yeah,
and we're having a nuisance meeting on the 20th. So,
great. Well, I'd be happy to come, I mean, I can fill you in too, but I'd be happy to come and talk about it. We could even demonstrate it, depending on where you're gonna be with me.
And that was one of my comments on it was it needs to be code/nuisance because code is completely, it's a portion of it. If there things are being done that's not to code, but the nuisance, you know, I think just Scrivener, I think that would be good as code/nuisance.
I'm surprised, speaking of you guys wanting maybe to jump on somebody else's deal, that neither one of you jumped on the nuisance deal.
Jumped on it?
Yeah, like, took it, you really wanna run with that, the nuisance, and nobody.
Well, are you saying that you are trying to give up one of your
No,
liaisons?
I'm just saying.
Well,
It's
you
just
kind of
business,
spoke about
He's-
forming that
He's
committee.
poking you.
You're becoming a real nuisance, Mark. So, thank you, Ginger.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I gotta run.
Ginger, can I get a copy of that?
We have,
Yes.
I am happy to help with anything that you need.
I think I wrote on it.
we have minutes
I
of
have.
January 6th,
There you go.
special session, would entertain a motion.
It's just a draft, so,
I would.
but it's close to being done.
The minutes for January 6th, special session.
Thanks, Ginger.
You're welcome.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve minutes of January 6th, special session. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Melanie, why don't we take just a 5-minute break? Can you see if Darwin's available? Because we need to we have him on our agenda, we wanted to talk about the Omni thing when he's here also,
That might be really good, yeah.
so we'll take a 5-minute break.
We'll come back to the session at 11:30.
All right, so Darwin, let's get the fastest thing off. You, go ahead and give a fast overview of the recommendation for a couple
Yes,
of
so
members.
planning commission, we've got 2 applicants, 2 vacancies currently. Joe Villagrana for the central area, and then Terry Crawford for, North Lake, and, great. I'm super excited for both of them. Joe would fill automatically the central vacancy, which is a 4-year term, and then there's 1 year left on the term, for the Christmas Valley, North Lake area, so Terry would just serve that year, and then, at the end of October, early November, I asked them for a recommendation again, moving forward, and who's staying on, who's not reapplying, and, so we give her that opportunity at that point to either say, oh, 1 year was enough, or she could go again, with recommendation, so, yeah, I'm happy with both, and look forward to having them start next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday.
So the planning commission members are officially appointed by the board of commissioners, so it's recommendation from the planning commission to us. So would entertain a motion or not.
I would make a motion that we accept the 2 applicants. I believe it is to carry out the rest of that term, for both applicants, correct?
Yeah, Joe's term started January 1st.
Okay, so he's got quite a
Yeah,
long,
he'd have a full
year,
in
right? But Terry's,
Terry's would end this year, December 31st. It's positions 4 and 5, I can't remember which is which. I forgot the name of stuff.
I know this is gonna get me in trouble. I'm fine with Joe, but I'm not fine with Terry.
So let's back up and there's a motion on the table and we'll get to discussion.
okay.
Did you finish your motion?
My motion would be that I
apologize, Jim.
no, you're fine, you're fine.
I'm just following the order.
I will amend my motion that we accept both applicants to carry out the remainder of their term. Those terms.
And I'll second that motion to carry it forward. Motion's been made and seconded, discussion.
No need to now.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Good.
I'm just concerned
Hesitant, sure.
with public relations part of how she would handle herself.
So that has been a concern of mine, means that she does have her own, paper up there in the community briefs. But also, I actually look at this as a huge positive, potential positive, because I think she's gonna now have her hands on these items and the applications in full to see what the planning commission, and then ultimately gets to you guys on appeals and things, and I think it'll be a good
Might
learning
be very
experience for her. And then, yeah, we might have her turn into our best, supporter, so.
So Mark, and so one thing I encourage us today, and I've encouraged all along, is a very good training. He already has an orientation from our legal counsel of what the boundaries are, whenever you're decision-making board. And for that to be very direct to, and all planning commission members, because of, they're a decision-making board. And so, I understand where you're going, but that was one reason why I encouraged it in the board. Basically, we're giving Darwin direction, get legal counsel involved, get these new members, education wise.
Consider
And she has been,
it's only the rest of the year.
she does, yeah, and that's,
When you said that,
that's one of the things
Yeah.
that is key. And then also, That-
Does.
that she has been at a lot of her meetings lately, ones we hold up in the North Lake area, she's been attending.
She does attend.
And she's been really, positive towards those applications too.
Well, they have to understand about ex parte communications, all the
Right,
things,
yeah.
and that comes from legal counsel and you as the director to make sure. And, that's very important. And especially as we're seeing development across Lake County that has the potential of bringing special interest groups and looking at Lake County more and more, so that ex parte conversation is going to be absolutely
That'll be definitely the number one thing that we're talking about. It's starting off that training on Tuesday.
Good. Training. Okay, that's my motion.
further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Chair votes aye. Did you vote?
I'm gonna say nay.
All right. Motion carries. We finally
Nothing
have it.
against you guys.
No,
No,
that's fine.
no,
I totally
Hey, we
agree.
understand. I understand.
You don't have to explain to me. I think we all
Yep.
know what you're saying.
See you.
All right, let's get to one that's really fun to talk about. I asked Darwin yesterday to come back today to talk about the trail that Oregon Natural Desert Association, 700+ mile trail, I can't remember how far it is for sure, across many counties.
Thank you, Kevin.
Harney County, Judge Reynolds had sent out a letter wanting to know if we wanted to push on this as far as putting them through the land use side of it. Previous judge, Judge Grassi, has done a lot of work over the years with special interest groups and come to some different agreements and everything, and his request is for us to have them follow land use rules the same as anybody else. I don't know what the rules are around trails and land use. Darwin sent out some stuff, I tried to review it. I did go to the on website last night, and I did see that right on their thing there, talking about trails, is they're actually out there mechanically doing some work on portions of these trails. Don't know what that means, if that's acceptable or not. The Board of Commissioners, all the way back, you guys got copies of the letters, all the way back to September of 2014, we opposed the desert trail connecting to the forest. That gives special designations for trails. If they can get that designation, and then that really limits wherever that trail possibly from scenic to area to development and everything. Within the vista of that, I've been told, I'm not no expert on that. Commissioner Schown and Kessler talked that way quite a bit. So I'm still there. Without having full knowledge of all that, I do hear secondhand is that they are connecting it to in Paisley to the forest trail. And the way sometimes these special interest groups is they connect to it even without permission, and it gets used. And then over time, the strategy that they use is over time, and as people change and so on, then they ask for that designation. So they're going right against what in Lake County, what the Board of Commissioners were in opposition. So,
I feel they need to follow the rules like everyone else.
And I'm all for trails, as you guys know. I'm not,
I hear you're a little green.
I'm not all for special interest groups taking
That was a
control of it. And so I believe that we do need to have rules. On the other hand, what I'm concerned about, Darwin, is that I don't wanna regulate progress for everybody else that's legitimately trying to. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I want to
So,
mention a thought on that. I would almost guarantee you that if we were putting in a trail, a new ATV trail, and we went across the desert, they'd be the first one at the table trying to shut it down and try to make the rules and regulations to shut it down. So I don't know that we'd bring any more attention than other organizations that's walking through the trail. And I think they're already a target.
when I find some time, I'll put this trail, and there may be a quick and easy way to do this, but I'll put the trail on Google Earth and then send it to you guys with the overlays of what was my biggest concern on
We're talking.
how we're gonna treat one way and treat others the same way. When we'll say on the, or we support your trail, when that same group then fights regular simple development for homes or something
Right.
that's in the same habitat, they just put a trail through. And that's where I have a big problem with this, cause I'm almost certain that this stuff is too core and low density habitat for safety house.
Well,
And
see,
if not, it's at least in general, but it's also through big game winter range habitats, which, we're getting a lot of opposition from the state.
And there actually used to be a trail that went from Paisley all the way around the backside of the Summer Lake,
Mhm.
all the way connecting up
It's
to,
not really accessible.
well, it does, but they won't, Honda was actually opposed to that even being there. It's an old trail,
Oh,
I'm trying to
you're
buy
talking
some
about
that
property.
old road, the
private
old
property.
road, not the rim, but yeah, they were looking at some property, I guess, but,
So-
I mean, this is,
so this is how they're getting around all this stuff. So the work you probably seen done could have been on another established trail already, like the Fremont Trail or whatever, the Fremont Tier. Their trail, their desert trail, is actually a virtual trail. And so if they're not busting ground on something that's not already established, it's going to be very hard to make that. But if they're busting ground on something that's not an established trail already,
Their own documentation shows where the trail is, so it
Yeah,
won't be
they've got
difficult.
it mapped.
It won't be
but
hard.
it's virtual.
Yeah, at this point, there's not really a trail there, is what you're meaning by that, right? So, yeah, there's no, 3-foot, 2-foot path or
doesn't
something.
exist, yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
in all the sections of this trail, yes,
Yeah.
and they've
Some of it
got
there might be.
legal descriptions and maybe easements already recorded with some of these landowners, but the trail itself, yeah, doesn't actually exist across some of these lands, other than you just walk in that direction. Follow the GPS that doesn't.
But I mean, that's something you
Like,
can,
like I said, this organization gets things established, and then there will be a trail. They say virtual trail today, but they just continue, and most, everything, even on their website, talk about they're so proud of taking the cattle off Park Mountain, and we know the condition of our mountain.
I'm 100%
So part of
with you.
the process that other counties, not to interrupt you, but the process that Harney County and probably some of the other counties are kind of pushing for would be a Goal 5 process for natural resources, open areas, scenic stuff. And that statewide planning goal has what's called the easy analysis. And you have to balance these conflicting uses. And so you would have to say, okay, well, if this trail is so important, and here are some potential adverse effects from this trail, or whatever, what's the balance there that still turns us into a positive, weighing, other economic, social, environmental,
Yeah, and-
energy-related opportunities that may now not be available if this trail then, essentially
Correct.
locks up these lands in that, then there's a buffer and there's a greater distance that
Correct,
you
but this-
can't do things.
This would
because
come
it's
out
scenic
though
trail.
in a planning.
Yeah, it should
it
come
would
out.
mean-
Yeah.
and it
I
doesn't
think our code
necessarily-
says that.
Right, and it doesn't mean that they don't have a pathway
Yeah, you're
forward.
right.
Okay, I mean, like,
And they have the money.
it wouldn't say that they wouldn't be approved for a trail. It's just they got to follow the process, because that process is in place, everyone else has to follow it.
It's interesting because in other developments, you're gonna have, conflicting uses and adverse effect development then have to be mitigated. And maybe there will be potential for mitigation dollars. I think that's a big hope and probably not realistic, but they can
I
say,
don't know
look,
if it's
you
necessarily
need
a
to
goal
help
for this
in
board
some of these
to
other, yeah, it's probably
ensure
not for them,
that, but-
because they're just thinking push this through anyways, but if
So,
you say that,
Well, you guys know how I feel about Omni.
yeah.
I mean,
well,
I'm not even
and
gonna
for the
start that conversation again.
So, like, yes, and we're talking a process and them being treated the same as any other applicant to do a trail across our county. And whether the other counties want to require that process too. Interesting, they're very proud of what I consider locking up 1.8 million acres on our BLM ground here with wilderness characteristics. That's a selling point for the people that come into this trail. As we set through those meetings on wilderness characteristics, if there's a user-created spot where vehicles went around a mud hole, that road is getting shut down and it's not acknowledged. But here's Honda saying, we're gonna put a trail out through there, and it's in this wilderness area, and that's okay. I struggle with that.
No, me too, 100%.
I struggle with that, because they're the first ones to say, no, you cannot drive there anymore, but by golly, we want what we
It's
want.
why they call them a special interest group though.
I mean, I'm nice when I call it special.
I know, but that's just it. I think it's very clear that this board and many others in our communities probably have concerns about this trail. They may not all be well-founded, maybe they're biased, but that would come out in a discussion through planning and following that process. Those concerns would come out, and they might even still have a pathway forward to having a trail. But by not following the process and by sneaking this through, like Commissioner Winters is kind of saying, you know, they're gonna put this forward, they're gonna take little steps, and then eventually they will get a trail. It's shady, and we're not gonna play that game. I'm completely against it.
So review what I sent you too, cause I did try to go through a comp plan and zoning ordinance about where we could get to them at least need to go through a process. And the easy analysis, the goal 5, analysis that's in administrative rule, it is a lot to go over, and I didn't review that before, between yesterday and today, again, to describe how that would go, but it would be something that would have public meetings and comment, and, would be something that at a minimum should come with some conditions, and,
So what we need to decide today with direction to our planning director is that we feel that they should, he feels, once he reviews it, feels that they're supposed to go through a process for this. And if the planning rules show that through Goal 5 or whatever, and then for him to work with the planners in Deschutes, Harney, and now here and see what their board of commissioners views are, if they're giving the planning director direction too, unified, we could be able to force that. If it's not unified, so be it. If this board wants to have our planning director
so.
give notices that they need to come before and like him.
So I didn't yet get on the phone with the other planners, that's until after the night again last night, 2 nights in a row, working on just staff reports with the planning commission for next week, and, but I did kind of look through all those emails before I attached them and sent them to you guys, and there were documentations that were already signed before from at least our county and Harney County, board members that was along those lines, and so, I would, look at that stuff and see what we've already said to them, and, obviously this is, 2/3 new board, and just re-up what was said in those, and we might, a simple new draft, but I will definitely be checking with Harney County as, they've kind of been the lead on this as well, and then, go from there.
The email that we received, I don't know if it's
I didn't
to
get
you, the setting board didn't, he wasn't in their planner.
Brandon Mullen.
Brandon,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that they were unified and really wanted to push too much. It was pushed by previous judge.
Yeah, it
Grassley.
definitely was Grasty's
Yeah.
kind of push, and
Um,
Brandon kind of,
Yeah, and I'm still there myself, so, we need to respond to Judge Reynolds.
So
and
don't
I know Judge Reynolds really well, I can give him a call too, just.
Okay,
So
That's
do we
fine.
need consensus or do we have a motion?
I think consensus is.
Just to move forward,
if
and then I'll report
just
back
move
to you.
forward.
I think,
I'll move back.
I think it's appropriate. The fact is, our
100%.
comprehensive plan shows in our policy that trails are permitted land use. But we have to find out if they meet the Goal 5. And so,
And there needs to be cooperation amongst agencies and to work out a plan on how this, because it's, if it's just private, well, then that definitely just falls within our jurisdiction, but if it's any bit on BLM or forest, those agencies have to cooperate with us, and
Well, and I don't know if
have
this
to
is
accept our plans.
appropriate or a stretch or whatever, but some of the trail is taking public ways or county roads and stuff like that. There hasn't been a whole lot of people who use those, but there's potential impact, for services, anywhere from search and rescue to.
And signage and stuff is a big deal.
that's
I
another
mean,
big.
it's no different than when we agreed to allow people, ATVs and stuff to be driving on our roads, there needs to be signage, we need to drivers need to be aware that there could be, potentially people walking these roads when we get cruddy weather or whatever happens and you don't know they're there, that there's strike hazard
One of the
and injuries and.
one of the things we
Back and everything else.
talked about when they first came before us and when they found out that we weren't in a lot of support was the water sources out there for humans. Most of the water sources are on private land, so if you're out walking virtual trail and there's a water hole over there, we go to the water hole. We sure don't need people trespassing on private land. Baby's view.
I'll follow.
Yeah, like how, what are they gonna do when they're walking along that trail and they happen to be on private property? Is it gonna be noticed that this is private property? Because now if you step off that trail, you're on private land. Are you gonna set
Or
your
you can
camp?
take a shortcut because it's virtual.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, the shortcut.
A lot of things that need to be discussed in the public meeting with the maps and everything.
Not saying there shouldn't be a pathway forward, I'm just saying that they need to follow the process, that's all.
If you're the Natural Desert Association, you can walk any part of that desert out there, it's all natural, you don't have to have a trail. It's all public land, you don't have to have a trail. Right? Don't have to designate a trail whenever you got the right to go out there and walk around.
But yeah, like, yeah,
So the consensus is the direction to our planning director to research, there's 4 counties, Arnie, Malheur, Lake, and Deschutes. So,
I'll follow up with them and let's and report back to you and
thank you so
see what
much,
we can
Dawn.
do to push this process.
All 3 of us show a little bit of emotion sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So, Mister, could I go back to the nomination of application? I said nay, but I only meant nay on one.
Oh, yeah, good clarification.
I meant nay on,
Yeah.
a yay on Joe Villagrana, and a nay on Terry Crow.
That makes sense.
And so I wanna make that.
Yeah, I don't know if, procedure wise, maybe we ought to go back and do individual nominations so that's clear.
we could do that,
I think that'd be appropriate.
I'd be fine with that, we can go back and amend our motion.
So let's go back, very good point, look for amendment to the appointment for the, done jointly to see what goes out for amendment motion.
I guess I made the motion.
Sorry.
Alright, no, I can do this, alright, I'll amend my motion to I'll accept the application for Joe Villagrana to fill out the rest of the term on the planning commission.
I'll second the motion. Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries.
I will also follow up with a secondary motion to appoint Terry Crawford to fill the rest of that seat's term for the remainder of 2020.
I'll second that motion. Motion's been made and seconded to appoint Terry Crawford for the remainder of the term. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Opposed?
Nay.
All right. We can move on forward. Thank you for the
Sorry, guys, I
clarification.
just wanted to.
That was very appropriate.
So I'm not gonna, tell you anything that I told you yesterday. I will prepare a staff memo just with a summary of everything that's been collected so far on and turned in as part of the record for the appeal that you'll hear next Wednesday at 10 a.m. It's, on the public construction file that Jeremiah and Marion Thorstead along with Leroy Horton has appealed. So that was approved by the planning commission. So I will prepare that today and have it to you by tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning.
Look forward to seeing it.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so
You're just like looking at the clock and dreading it.
Yeah, because I like I said, I should have
And you were on
12:30 2 nights
I'm
in a
just
row.
reminding you you're on record
Yeah, and I just,
for saying you'll be done with that one.
well, that's what I'm just saying.
I'm done my
It's back after 5 again today.
Alright.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Alright.
Alright, so we carried liaison updates to today, so that you were here, because of, I believe both of you have updates from your travels over
Well, I kinda updated you on everything already, so.
the.
Thank you.
I'll take lead and forward to you, alright, I have three here, and if there's any that I forget that you guys are interested in, please ask. Railroad, we continue to work on the railroad and the railroad as far as the Chrissy grant and all that. We did, through the FRA, they mentioned that the 1.4 million match on the Red Rock Spur was not eligible. We've acknowledged that, but we're not fully convinced that it's not going to be, nor is Red Rock itself. So, Red Rock they done all their NEPA stuff. And so the FRA is saying that it didn't qualify because they wasn't part of the NEPA process. Red Rock's very willing to have that discussion and show them where that would fit. So there's still potential for that to be there. If that 1.4 million doesn't count to match, the total project's 10.6 million, 5.6 of the Chrissy dollars. It ratchets down, they don't disqualify us, so that's good.
Okay.
So then it ratchets down percentage wise. So not having that 1.4 million, this over here, it ratchet down by 40, I want to say 47, talk with Ann, she's our numbers person. So it'd ratchet down, it'd still be, if we get the dollars from the state and everything, it'd still be total around 7.6 million. So that's, and I know you guys talk individually with Ann and keep updated with it, but you still need some public updates on this. So working on that a lot. Representative Reski is sending out a letter for support to all our members on the House and the Senate side for this short session, asking for the 3.5 million in state funds. So that's going forward. I haven't got an update on the operations of the railroad yet this week, so we'll get that a little bit later, I'm sure. So stay close to this, guys. You guys are in Salem a lot more than I am, and when you get that happen chance to figure out who's influential, and I'm talking beyond our state reps or state senators, if you get walking down the hallway to their committee meetings or something, just to make them aware of the impacts it's had on our community, and with the Red Rock part of it and everything that fits so much of the culture today, we're really good.
Right.
Diesel fuel going down the tracks and stuff, so I really encourage you guys stay close to this, work on it hard when you're there, so.
Well, just on that note, real briefly, I actually did meet with Mike Eliason, who used to work with AOC.
Yes.
And he's recently resigned and he's gone on to another job. Now he works for Oregon Forest Industries Council. And he is a little bit aware of our situation here in Lake County. Now, of course, that council also works with Collins. Collins is, of course, a member of that. So I tried to make the point that Collins ships their lumber on our cars and our railroad. And so we would like to make sure, you guys are speaking up for Lake County, and, make sure that's on your radar. So we're just on that note, again, it's not necessarily a rep or anyone else, but at least they're cognizant of the fact that there's Collins' interest there.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's exactly the way politics can really help out some of this. But we're all politicians, that. Sometimes we don't like to admit it, but once we get in this realm, we are. And when you're politicking, when you meet with these people, and sometimes it's not the state senator or representative, it's an interest group over here that gets it up to.
That's working with our timber industry and everything else on a very hard scale.
Yeah, excellent.
And we have timber interests and timber being shipped on our railroad, so it only makes sense to make sure that we're advocating.
That railroad is very important for that mill to stay here.
Right, absolutely.
So, landfill, we're getting there. As you guys were part of, ground running, had some ups and downs and different things. He has some good, ideas that he's working on. I'm working with him. He works with you guys and when you guys' office visiting. I appreciate that so much. I think that there's some positive things coming down the pike and a lot of different things. Encourage both of you to stay close to that service. You know, I'm very passionate about, and we're public servants, and very passionate about keeping that service here for all of Lake County. I did do ran up to North Lake with him last week. I can't remember what day it was, Thursday, I think it was. And the landfill, the site guy up there didn't even know where he was coming. Pleasant, very pleasant. It was a great trip. The landfill up there is great shape. The equipment's well maintained. It was a good trip. It was good to see. So, encourage you guys to stay right with following that, supporting, getting that service to the people. So, and ask questions of Buddy, me, or anything. You mentioned, and I forgot about even giving an update, and I apologize, that Wolf Committee. We did meet yesterday, and actually, I guess Melanie's my go-to person on this. She's one that writes the grant, she's the one that keeps it going and calls the meeting. John Taylor is the chair for this, and we have good representation. So our meeting yesterday was to look at what we need to apply for on the grant cycle for projects and that type of stuff. We returned money last time because we didn't have the projects out there. Our discussion was, as far as projects, we pretty much have plenty of trail cameras, flaggery, is that what they call that?
Flattery.
Flattery, something like that, and different things. So we stayed with the component we talked about OHA and Rocky Mountain Elk. Danny Michelson is on the committee. He also is very entrenched in Rocky Mountain Elk and trying to get the educational side out there. In layman's terms, most people think the less wolves there are, the better off we are, and that's normal thinking. In a management aspect, as there is true documentation out there of wolves, that shows whenever it becomes a breeding pairs and on and all that, that's whenever the state of Oregon can start stepping up on more of a management skill. In Lake County right now, 395 on the west side, they're still federally listed. On the east side, they are not. So if there's depredation on the west side of 395, it's federal. They come and investigate everything. Although the state is the first one there, has to do it also. So we're sitting here split by a highway. The wolf doesn't know which side of the highway is federal and which one is not federally listed. So we had some discussion about that. The lacking part is true accurate documentation or to show the numbers, because most hunters and people out there don't report when there's true documentation. So it's interesting. You know, the documentation means that they get closer to being delisted and on and on. So back to the projects, Melanie's going to write a grant for $1,000 for educational side of it. If there is depredation, and it's proven depredation, then we go back and we request those funds for that depredation. We had one depredation in Lake County confirmed and did leverage some funds for that. That was 2 years ago, Melanie. Was that right when we came on?
Right before.
Right before you came. So, but Melanie is the go-to wolf person. I sit there as the commissioner. We have a great board. When this was set up, you had to have representation from several different aspects. People that support wolves, commissioner, I forget, ranching community, our group that works pretty well together. And whenever it comes to depredation, we know what happens, but it's saying, no, it's what it is, there's depredation, we need to look at this, we need to look at problem wolves if they are. And the one wolf that was shot in Lake County, they didn't find out who that person was, and that person has pled guilty, and that's all they take care of. That was in the Silver Lake area. And, OR3 still has a collar, it doesn't work, been photoed in Lake County. This year, there was another wolf that got collared, and so there is documentation of two wolves collared in Lake County. One that collar doesn't work, the other one that collar does work because it's more modern. The battery's dead on OR3, he's
Been on there for 13 years.
13 years, is it he or she?
He.
13-year-old wolf.
The lady wolf is 58.
This one.
Or 50. It's the new lady.
I bet you said she's 58.
No, she's not 58. That's her
Dog
number.
years.
So what did I miss, Mel, or what did you guys?
I covered most of it. I think we have a great group that works together with a lot of different opinions, and we all work for the greater good of the community. I'm trying to-
So that's what I jotted down, we jotted down.
That's fine, yeah.
So, unless you have some questions for me.
So, I had to send the money back by January 31st. We didn't spend any of the money. We spent some of the commissioner's money on printing pamphlets, but that was minimal, so I didn't charge them that. Just something for you guys to do to help the community, I feel like. And then I will start applying for the next cycle, I think mid-February. So, I'll have that done, and then they me the award in like probably March, probably, they notify me of the award now. And
So, either one of you have interest in Wolf, the commissioner says on that. We meet quarterly out here, that's
we're
needed.
trying to meet twice a year, unless there's a lot of activity, we might meet again if these wolves mate. They've been seen together up by Thompson Reservoir, so
Yeah.
if they start having pups, that might be something we need to talk about, but we try to meet probably every 6 months or quarterly, depending on the activity.
So I would assume one of you two will, within a year, be interested in taking over on the Wolf side of it. So we'll probably have a lot of different discussions between us. Moving on in life here, that's one that when we have a meeting, one or both of you, like I said, and that be comfortable, because it's not public meeting rules, or we're not deliberating towards the commissioner's decision and those type of things. So you're welcome to sit in, get acquainted, and I will look at both of you, and it's a struggle at times, because it's a different way of management, a different way of thoughts than what Hunter usually has, and that's the mentality of most of us. They just don't need to be here. Well, that's not true. They're going to be here. Whether people, basically what we used to hold, took years to ever eliminate them before, and that was when there's poison or strychnine or something. Even if there was a season on them, they're still going to be here. So, with that said, more documentation, so that over, in my opinion, over these regulations get less of it, the better off we are. So it's sort of having a different way of thinking, not my traditional emotional thinking. So as you guys, whichever one of you guys are both are interested, it doesn't take a whole lot of time. The biggest thing is all three of us need to, especially you probably, James, because you're in the area out there, but if there's a sighting, and it seems to be legitimate, if there's anything like tracks or anything, get a hold of John here, he'll go up there,
I've got them in my office. So, and John, you're supportive of those.
Yeah,
savings and stuff,
he did, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Us hunters have been a great tool for training. So, but any other things that you feel are confirmed with the time for the party to want to go.
Yep. John and I have had a discussion.
Good. The surprising thing is that they don't have no absolute documentation over there on the west side of the lake here.
And there too.
And that's surprising, but I told him, I said, I have lots of trail camera pictures of elk, bear, everything else. And I know quite a few people that have cameras in that area, none of us that I know of capture them. And they wondered, that's food source on itself. And so I'm saying, if you're getting pictures of elk, you're not getting pictures of wolves. That's strange.
Yeah.
But I still, and I told him this, that was a wolf we seen out there in Moose Lake, whenever we was on the high road. I took that picture, but I thought they didn't interact with coyotes much. And then the picture went up at Thompson, there's a coyote right there, and I talked to him about that. And he says, yeah. And I'm still convinced that day in the high road, there's just no comparison in size. I wouldn't have a little wolf out there. It was huge. Anyway, there's my liaison update.
Okay.
You said you're good?
The only thing we had our VOPTA board, training, we're going to be having a board meeting here, not too much longer. Hopefully, we don't have any appeals, or at least those that we already currently have are, settled before then.
I'm so glad they have enjoyment of being on the office. Keep volunteering.
No, I volunteered, and then you decided you didn't want it, and then I took it on.
No, there was
Somebody's gotta do
It
it.
was a friendly point.
Okay, alright.
Remember that?
Alright.
Not that we.
It's
I remember when we divvied up liaisons, you were saying you had interest
It's a
there.
very important
I
function.
said I had it.
Okay.
I appreciate you going to get
No
the
worries.
you know,
I think it's actually very educational and it gives you a very good insight into things.
well, and when our constituents, the public want to appeal something, you need to be there with the right education, the right knowledge, so do it. So thank you for doing that training.
I think Deanna Walls will probably be our chair. There's been a little bit of discussion over that because in the training they told us that if any of you hold an elected office, you're automatically the chair. But our board doesn't see it that way, and we've been arguing over it a little bit because Deanna's been on there for 8 years. She has the most knowledge. We kind of feel like she should be our chair. So that's kind of
I'm very respectful.
I think it would be appropriate, so that's probably what's going to happen. And because apparently each board can choose, basically from what I understand, we can do it our own way. And we can set our own policy for our actual board on how we're going to carry out our meetings and everything else. So I think Deanna will likely be our chair. Don Lasley is also on our board, and myself. But I'm hopeful that all the appeals will be worked out before we actually have to convene. So anyway, that's that update. Another thing I would, I think there's been a lot that's gone on in our community surrounding behavioral health and mental health, and not just here in Lakeview, but over our entire county. We had this discussion not too long ago, when Mr. Shumway came before us and we discussed it. I attended the hospital board meeting and I shared this board's respect for the Lake Health District's board. And we just made it clear that if they had any questions, they're more than welcome to contact us. But it was our board's feeling that the appropriate place to take, for Carl to take their concerns from the North Lake Health District would have been to Lake Health District Board. And that was what I shared with them. It of course was recorded by the newspaper. They were very appreciative and they sent on their appreciation to us.
And
So,
so,
just wanted
and this
to-
board supported you going
Correct.
further in that message.
I shared that with them.
Thank you for that update. That's-
I would, because I foresee mental health being more of an issue in Lake County as we kind of go forward, it's because it, as a trend, it's becoming more of an issue nationwide. And I'm not convinced that anyone's really found a solution for much of what we're seeing yet. I would just encourage both my board to continue to stay involved with it, and definitely I would say make sure that to maybe even reach out to Trace, Dr. Wanzer, and show your appreciation for her, and just make sure that sometimes those unspoken words they need to be spoken, and I think Trace would appreciate it, and I think our folks who are working in behavioral health and in public health would appreciate that. Just the acknowledgement from our board, even though we have a contract in place, I still think it makes a difference sometimes to hear that from the commissioners.
Yeah.
That we really
we are
appreciate
the
their work.
public health and mental health
Correct.
authorities. Good point.
So, that's all I have on that.
You
I-
triggered one of my thoughts, is it okay if I
Sure,
bring it in? Just because you mentioned Carl in the discussion, I just want to reiterate, and you and I had a little bit of this discussion in between meeting yesterday or whatever. Melanie, be comfortable to request the cover sheets and that information before it gets to our meetings.
Mhm.
There's no reason why SCOAD couldn't have that to us so we could review it. So, you're the go-between, just the board here, we understand there's gonna be times people are going to hit us with stuff right at meeting time, but you have our support. Whenever you have to tell somebody, you gotta get this stuff done, this is not me, this is the direction of the board. And
I'm
I just
sorry.
wanted to make sure.
No, you're fine.
I
No,
apologize.
No, you don't need
It's
don't
not
dare
your-
apologize. You're
No,
fine.
It's not going toward you, you need the support of the
We-
three of
I
us,
suppose
whenever
we're just
you
trying to-
implement what we want.
And from myself personally, I'm not upset with SCOAD in any
No.
way, but it was, we were both kind of looking through the material yesterday, trying to read through it and review it while the presentation was underway. But in a previous meeting just a little while ago, we had kind of made a public statement saying, hey, folks, if you're gonna come before us, we'd like to have some documentation at least before us. And so it was funny that we got consensus of the board already on this, but immediately,
I brought it up to
Yeah.
solidify for your tool as the board of commissioners to say,
I apologize.
it's
no,
not
you're fine.
It's not you.
I think it's more for the camera
Yeah.
than anything, and for Kevin. We gotta drive.
Cause you never know what he's gonna read.
Well, whenever, take ownership myself, whenever we have gotten more lax with the way that our operation is, it don't change that right overnight. And people have presented yesterday, that's the way they've presented before. It's not towards you, it's a compliment that you can use us. So, anyways, it triggered my thoughts on that.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. So the town manager reached out to us and would like us to attend a meeting regarding 911 levy. That was the most I got out of the email. I've been unable to connect with her. She was here today.
Was that?
Yes,
Well-
that was Michelle Perry.
I sure wish she would have,
She had to apparently leave in the middle of the meeting. Yeah. She came in late, so she was here when we came back and reconvened.
When I was crying.
She came out while you were out. She came in while you were out. So anyway, I'd like to touch base with her and find out more about what the 911 levy is and what discussion there is being had around that. There was discussion with our Lakeview Disaster Unit around the possibility of having a levy put in place to facilitate funding for EMS and the disaster unit. And I believe Chuck was researching that with Dave Knowles, looking at some possibilities there so that we can continue the funding, make sure that that doesn't go away. So whatever they want to do, it's kind of in their ballpark for their discussion. The 911 tax levy I was unaware of. The disaster unit discussion I was aware that that was taking place. I don't think that those are the same thing, so I'd like some clarity on that. But as liaison to 911 dispatch, I just wanted to bring that up now because I was wondering if maybe you guys got that email too, or a little puzzled by it.
I have not got that email. I do know because we've got an update from IT people and different things, is the 911, and then you have dispatch are two separate things that are the same. It's hard to separate them, different funding. The 911, and the town doesn't have a reserve there, or they have IT issues. When I say IT, I don't mean IT, they have component issues that's dated with no money there. So I don't know if that's what they're talking about.
Well, it just said 911 levy, so that's
a big word.
yeah, right, and it is. There's a lot there. So, and I'm not going to try to unpack that. I just wanted to update you guys, and maybe if any of you are interested in attending that meeting, I'll forward that email on to you. And if you guys have interest in attending the town hall's meeting for this discussion, it might be great to stay involved and just kind of keep it on our radar. The very last thing I have is OEM conference for Oregon Emergency Managers. Both myself and I believe Commissioner Alverson, you were signed up to go. I was reminded again yesterday that we need to get our reservations at the motel taken care of ASAP, because those will
So
disappear.
what are the dates on that?
I do not have those in front of me, but I will
I
forward.
wrote it on my calendar.
Okay, but that's coming up in a couple months, but it will be in Sun River this year, so it's not too terribly far away.
So do we have the alert since up and running yet?
I sent an email asking about that, and I haven't heard back.
I will be with Daniel tomorrow out in Plush and Adel area with AT&T. I will try to get some information on that for you guys.
Well, because of whenever we agreed to that, it was such a great tool.
Right.
On this, that tool, if we're gonna have that, we need to make sure it's utilized in every aspect we can.
Right. Right.
Yeah, haven't had no updates on that.
I think the original idea that it would be at least operational by Christmas, by the holidays. I can't remember for certain, but I believe that was the original intent. So we'll see, it's January now, so we'll see where it's at. I'll follow up.
It might be one of those contractual things that they may not be in compliance, you know, I don't know. You'll have that discussion tomorrow. Good.
I'll check you.
Did you guys do this already?
We took care of that yesterday.
That's really all I have for liaison updates.
All right. We have the agenda all covered.
I believe so.
We will adjourn at 22 minutes after 12.